Everyone. Um, can you hear me okay? Yes, okay. Um, yeah, so my name is Nico. I work as a training instructor for Project Return Peer Support Network. I actually did a CAPS Academy cohort September 2025. So, yeah, a few months ago I was in your shoes a little bit. Um, but yeah, I worked on our organization's Wormline for 4 years, and I just recently, about 6 months ago, got promoted to a training instructor. So I'm very excited, but I'm still very new to this, so don't judge. But yeah, so today we're going to be presenting on conflict resolution. But we do have a bit of a small group, so if you don't mind, just briefly like introducing yourselves, maybe your pronouns, before we begin. So my name is Nico and I use they, she pronouns. Mhm.
Ch- All right. Okay, go
Right.
ahead.
Period. I see everyone's name, so that's okay. All right. I think we're about ready to present it. Would you like me to share or will you be sharing, Renee? Me? Okay.
Oh, I didn't see it. Yeah, you got control.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. All
Oh,
right.
hey, y'all. I'm going to be putting, we have an updated slide. So I'm going to go ahead and put the handout in the chat for y'all right now. Okay. Let's all grab
Mm,
that too, by the way.
actually, let me make sure I share this correctly. I have to share with audio, right?
Yes.
Share sound.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
All right. Are you all able to see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Beautiful.
All right. So on conflict resolution, sorry, my thing's a little.
You're all good.
Okay. So for today's objectives, we are going to define and identify what conflict is. We are going to introduce the nonviolent communication model. We are going to practice applying active listening with groups or with partners. And then we're going to do a practical application of nonviolent communication. So before we begin, I already know when I first got assigned to do conflict resolution, I was a little bit intimidated because I mean, it's conflict, right? It seems like really intimidating and scary. And when I think of it, I often think of like big explosions and things like that. So before we get into it, we're going to go ahead and practice some deep breathing. So what I like to do is we breathe in for 4 seconds, we hold for four, we breathe out, and then we'll hold. So we're going to do this about 3 times, and I'm going to guide us through the exercise. So when we're breathing in, just imagine you're taking in all that good energy, all that positivity, and when you're breathing out, you're releasing any negativity. So we're gonna breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Release. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. And release. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. And last time we're breathing in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Release. 2, 3, 4. All right. Thank you all, everyone, for, engaging me in that. I like to start with the breathing exercise. I know it's pretty common in CAPS, but especially with conflict resolution, I think before we get into trying to resolve conflict, it's important to just take a deep breath, relax, and regather yourself. So it's always a good exercise. And just so you know, that's my dog. She's at my feet right now still. All right. So defining conflict. Conflict is in noun defined as a serious disagreement or an argument, typically a protracted one, which means that it occurs over an extended time. And in verb form, it means to be incompatible or at variance, to clash. So again, like I said, when we see conflict, we often think of, these big explosive arguments, maybe fights. I know for myself, I think about like arguing with my partner, slamming doors, like this really big thing. Um, but conflict, I do want to kind of root for it a little bit. Not that it's ever really good, but it happens. It's okay, especially in this field. You are going to run into conflict at some point. Even if you are, in your mind being the best peer supporter possible. I know we talk about like I forget the term, but cultural, like, I don't know if you guys have gotten into culture yet, but um yeah. So, I do want to take a moment to differentiate between a conflict and disagreement. So a disagreement is um, a lack of consensus or agreement, and it's not immediately negative, and it allows, for people to be able to communicate with one another and express what they want and come up with solutions. An example of this would be, you and your friends all want something different to eat, right? I want Taco Bell. My other friend, she wants sushi. My other friend, she doesn't like sushi. So that's, kind of a disagreement. A conflict is the consequence of prolonged disagreement that lacks a resolution. So it's a little bit more intense. It can feel really uncomfortable or negative for all involved. And it's not always an easy solution. But because of this, it encourages us to be creative in solution solving and trying to come up with ways to go about it. And I do really want to emphasize conflict is bound to happen in your personal lives. Here at work, it's really no different. So an example of conflict is you and your friends argue because you never agree on a place to eat. Um, so do we have any questions, or is this clear? All right, moving on. So we don't need to break out into groups and we don't need to stay out loud. Um, but you can share, of course, if you'd like. But I want you all to take a moment to reflect on the time you experienced conflict. So, whether that's in your personal relationships, at work, with strangers, in whatever scenario. And I want you to consider how you were feeling in that moment, maybe what emotions came up for you. And again, you can share, but you are not pressured to. Mhm. So I'll give that about a minute. Okay. Um, okay. So likely you may have felt activated or triggered. Maybe you were angry, you were jealous, scared, you felt disrespected. There are so many things that come up with this. Often when we are in conflict, we think of the word angry, right? When I think of conflict, I'm like, oh, well, someone's angry, someone's upset. But when we think about these emotions, there's, I don't know if you all have ever seen a photo of like the iceberg of emotions. And so when we feel angry, it's often not that you're just angry. There's something underneath there. Like maybe you're feeling hurt, or maybe you're feeling vulnerable and you're scared. And so in that moment, you're not reacting in the most perfect way possible, right? Um, and so I really just want to emphasize that that's okay. These big emotions, they can be intimidating because they're typically thought of in a negative way. But I do want to emphasize these are not inherently negative. It's okay to feel these emotions. And sometimes it's okay, maybe if we don't have the best form of communication. The idea is that you want to identify it so that you can, move to better resolution. So, as we're talking about, okay, well, I know that I'm pissed off. How do I go about this? So, Marshall B. Rosenberg, he has a PhD. He's no longer here, but his work still stays with us, and it's really important. So, he's a psychologist, and he's the author of the book Nonviolent Communication, which is where we actually draw the communication model that we're going to be using today. And so, for him, his focus is on relationships between people and trying to develop healthier communication. And so he emphasizes you know, it's more important to vocalize your needs and how you're feeling rather than assigning blame to someone for what is right or wrong. And so we are going to take just a moment. Sorry, this video is taking forever to load, but we're gonna watch this video of him kind of talk about it. So I'm gonna press play and just let me know if you can't hear the audio.
Here's your wife's needs. Here's your needs. When she hears your needs without hearing any criticism or demand, and you hear her needs without any criticism and demand, the solution will find you. The conflict will resolve itself. It does need to be resolved. But what most of us do, we skip this and go right to here. For example, I sometimes do workshops just with married couples or other people living together in a love relationship. And what we do to begin the workshop, we identify the couple who has had a conflict, the longest outstanding conflict that could not be resolved. And I make a prediction, and it's right. My prediction has been accurate in maybe, I'm sure, at least 75% of the cases. But my prediction is this, that we will resolve the conflict within 20 minutes. Within 20 minutes from the point at which both parties can tell me what the other party is needing. Okay? Now, one time we found a couple married 39 years. 39 years had a conflict, had not been able to resolve this conflict. The wife said to me, Marshall, I can tell you right now, we're not going to be able to resolve this within 20 minutes. We have a good marriage, we communicate well, but this is just one of those things that we're different people and we just have a conflict here. Now I said, let me correct one thing. I didn't say we're going to resolve it within 20 minutes. I said within 20 minutes from the point at which you can both tell me what the other party is needing. Well, she said, Marshall, when you've been married 39 years and you've talked about something almost every day, I can tell you we understand each other. The problem isn't that. We're just two different people in this issue. Well, I said, I've been wrong before. I can sure be wrong this time, but let's see. We'll find out within 20 minutes. So first, tell me what his needs are in this situation. He doesn't want me to spend any money. He responds immediately, that's ridiculous. 39 years of communication. Now, first of all, doesn't want me to spend any money is not a need. See, needs and strategies need to be separated. They had been talking about how much money she could spend and not spend, but the more important issue there was whether who takes care of the checkbook. He unilaterally controlled the checkbook, which was really the main issue between them. See, but I'm saying I don't even want the couple to talk about the strategies or the solutions until the connection is there. When the connection is there, the conflicts usually resolve themselves. So I pointed out to her, no, that's not a need. And even if it was, notice he's saying that's not accurate. But she said, okay, let me then tell you what his needs are, Marshall. You see, he's just like his own father. They both have a depression mentality when it comes to money. I said, stop. Now I'm hearing psychoanalytic jackal. Now it's going to take another 39 years if you get into that. No, I'm not asking for an analysis of his personality. I'm saying, what are his needs? She didn't know. After 39 years, she had no awareness, consciousness of his needs. So I said to him, okay, well, she doesn't know. Why don't you tell her? Well, Marshall, let me tell you what her needs are. You see, she's a lovely woman, wonderful mother, a wonderful wife. But when it comes to money, she's totally irresponsible. Here comes another 39 years, you see. I ask for a need and he gives me a diagnosis. And of course, she immediately says, "That's unfair." I said, "Hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it." So I could see they didn't have a need literacy, so I had to loan them my ears. So with giraffe ears, of course, I'm conscious that all judgment, she's totally irresponsible, is a tragic expression of an unmet need. You see? So if she would have had these ears, they would have been able to resolve this in the first year of their marriage. But she didn't. She was taking it personally. So I helped them out. I said, when you say she's irresponsible, are you feeling frightened and need to be sure the family is protected economically? He said, that's exactly what I mean. Well, that wasn't what he's been saying for 39 years. But he didn't know how to say his feelings and needs. Okay, so I've got his needs identified. He was scared, wanted to protect the family economically. I turned to his wife and said, could you tell me back what you heard him say? But because I did, one time I overdrew the checkbook when we were, first married, now he thinks, I said, excuse me. Notice what the first word that she said was, but. See, she doesn't know the cardinal giraffe rule. Never put your butt in the face of an angry person. I said, what are his feelings and needs? But, no. What are his feelings and needs? Want me to repeat them? Yeah. I hear him saying he's scared. Well, but, no, hold it. Calm down, James. Hear his feelings and needs. See, but after 39 years of enemy image, it's not easy for somebody to shift these images, you see. Once we get one of these images in our mind of the other person's wrongness, even when they are expressing their needs, we don't hear it. These enemy images are hard to get past, you see. So she's been seeing him as cheap and having this depression mentality for 39 years. See? So she can't see the human being behind her image. I said, let me repeat it again. I hear him saying he's scared because he needs to protect the family economically. Can you say back? Yeah, he thinks I'm irresponsible. Let's try it again. After 3 more repetitions, finally, she could hear his needs and feelings separate from her judgments. Finally.
So I would like to invite you all maybe to share your reflections of the video we just watched. Do you have any? Luna, go ahead.
So I thought it was like pretty cool and funny how he like threw humor in there because you're talking about conflict, which brings up like different emotions, but he was able to like teach us something like I think it was funny, like his joke of like never bring a butt into like never put a butt in an angry person's face, or what did he say? Something like that.
Yeah,
And
he
then
said
he had like the
that.
puppets and all that. Like that was pretty funny, but yeah, he had a good point of like the husband not being able to communicate his need or like verbalize it, and it came out differently, so there is a miscommunication there which caused a conflict, and then just kind of trying to like relate to the wife to have more active listening instead of like responding immediately. So that was my thoughts on it. Thanks for that video.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Alondra?
Hi, good morning. So when I watched that video, I was like, yeesh, I've definitely done some of those things in previous relationships. Like definitely a huge reflecting moment for me. I'm now in a different relationship, but I was like, whoa, like that was definitely me at some point. And it's just maybe if I had taken things a little bit differently, things could have been different. But it's all about growth.
Yes, growth. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you. I was working on this presentation yesterday and I got in an argument with my partner, and I was really trying, like, okay, I do this, like there's a little model for communication. I tried it, and girl, we were still arguing. So I'm like, okay, you can have the tools, but that doesn't mean that, you're always going to be able to do this. I just thought it was so ridiculous and funny after I told my partner. I was like, there's no way I was really trying to do this presentation, and I just fought with you like that. So,
Oh my
yeah,
God.
it happens.
That's awareness. That's awareness right there. I love it. Right? Awareness,
Period.
Nicole.
Any other shares?
I just thought
All
it was a
right.
great example of we just like, people just stepping on each other's toes. So therefore we're all getting puffy, puffy, puffy. And um it's like there needed to be a pause. I don't know. It's just really weird. So conditioned for so many years. And what did he say? It took about 3, 4 times to keep going over and over. And it just to me it sounds like and it looks like you have to be very mindful. Like what you're talking about. Like you had that awareness, but it's like always kind of trying to have that awareness everywhere.
Yeah, and it's hard, absolutely. And that's the thing. We can't avoid conflict in our personal lives, and we certainly can avoid it in our professional lives as well. When you think about it, peer support, when we're engaging with people, they're in an extremely vulnerable space, right? Maybe I know from my experience working on the warm line, a lot of people maybe they weren't active, they didn't have plans, maybe not suicidal, or maybe they did. And so when you're reaching them, they're in a very vulnerable space, and people often look to us as if, oh, you must have it all together. You must know everything because you're a peer and you're in mental health. And it's like, hell no. If you would have seen me 5 minutes ago, I was just crying and bawling my eyes out. Like it may seem like we have things more together than we do. And sometimes there's a pressure to be perfect, and people may look to us for advice. And of course, it's, never really supposed to give advice, but sometimes things come up. I know in my experience working on the warm line, communication is incredibly important there because all you have is your communication, right? You can't see the other person on the line. You can't see them engaging. You can't really get the full connection. And so your words are really important, and you have to be very meaningful and very intentional with the way that you speak. So let me go ahead and share this presentation again. Um, I'm sorry, I think you guys may see yourselves for a second. I don't know how to remove that. Can you see? All right.
Yeah, you're
Uh, I'm good. Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm like not really good with technology. I'm trying to get out of this slide, but it's a little bit stuck. Give me 1 second. Okay, I got that. Mm. All right, so you are able to see the slides? Okay. So as we were watching him, he had his little giraffe ears on. So this is the part that comes in. So the 4 ears of nonviolent communication. So the idea is that there are 4 different ways that we can choose to or not listen to ourselves and others. And so we have the judgmental jackal and the gentle giraffe. Um, so it is optimal to listen through the ears of the gentle giraffe, as we heard Dr. Rosenberg, with his ears. But again, it's not always possible. It's not always easy to accomplish this because the situation is often a little bit more complicated in our minds. We all got different emotions and feelings, and we all have different perspectives. So it's not always easy to listen with giraffe ears. And I just want to emphasize, this is in no shape or form uh meant to shame people who do listen with jackal ears, because trust me, I've been there. We've all been there. And as Dr. Rosenberg was talking about in the scenario with the wife and the husband, you know, sometimes we let our egos or our emotions kind of get in the way of communication and what we really mean. So again, it's really just about understanding, hey, when you are being a judgmental jackal, being able to recognize that, and that self-awareness is the first step in, having healthy communication. So, as an example, we have the judgmental jackal. So, the two ears, one of them is for ears in, which is when it pertains to you, and ears out is when it pertains to other people. So, with the ears in, the judgmental jackal often judges and criticizes themselves, submitting in situations. And with ears out, they often judge and blame others, which comes in the form of criticism or, judgment. Um, and it's important to note that the judgmental jackal, sometimes it's habitual and automatic. You may not intentionally trying to be like an a-hole, right? It's just an automatic response sometimes. And, some of us may not have grown up in homes where we were modeled healthy communication. Maybe this is all that we've seen. And so sometimes it's hard to be able to be a gentle giraffe when you're so accustomed to being a jackal. And again, it's not anything, super inherently negative. It's just more, it's not as healthy for you. And with this, you risk hindering relationships with yourself and with others. And I do want to say sometimes we are more of a judgmental jackal to ourselves, and we're a gentle giraffe to others. So we really want to emphasize it's not just about how we show up and support others. It's about how you do it for yourself as well. I know for myself, I say really cruel things to myself that I wouldn't want to be my friend, so just think of that. And for the gentle giraffe, for the ears in, you're able to sense your own feelings and needs. And for ears out, you're able to sense and identify the feelings and needs of others. And it's important, as we were talking about active listening, right? It has to be intentional. The idea with peer support and, even in this communication is to meet people where they're at. If someone is in a space where, maybe there is a conflict that's happened and you see that they're really upset, and, for instance, for me, working on the warm line, people call in, and like I said, sometimes we weren't a crisis line, but sometimes people were in crises or they were close to getting there, right? So someone will call in, and we have regulations where, well, if you're a new caller, we need to get your name, we need to get your age, we need to get your state, right? We need to get certain demographic information, and it's non-negotiable. In order to be on our line, you have to have this information. But if someone is calling in and they're like, hey, like, I'm not feeling good, like, I want to harm myself or something is going on, I'm not going to say, okay, well, I absolutely, I'll get their name, but I may not absolutely get all of their information because in the moment, I'm more focused on making sure that they're okay, that they're safe, rather than focusing on, the guidelines that we have. And so that's just an example, but you meet people where they're at. If you see that they're not in a space to talk, right? I know for me, when I'm upset, please stay away from me. Don't be in my face. It's only going to aggravate me. So just recognizing what the person wants. And if you don't, asking, right? Well, what do you want from me right now? Do you need space? Do you want to talk? Do you want to, go for a walk? What do we want to do? And so this encourages, positive self-talk and relationship building because we're really trying to see the person and we're keeping our focus on the person, especially when it comes to peer support, and our roles as peer supporters. So, we are going to transition into pairs. I believe Renee has set up the breakout rooms. But what we're going to do in our pair is we're going to describe a day. It could be today, it could be a stressful day, maybe it could be one of the examples that you were thinking of, with conflict. So you're going to talk about your day for 2 minutes, and the second person is just going to listen. you're not going to talk. Instead, you're going to try to identify what feelings you think that they may be expressing. And then after 2 minutes, you'll reflect on the feelings you heard. You'll talk to them, try to like, did I get this right? This is what I understood. Um, and if you misunderstood, then that would be the point for them to clarify. If not, you guys will go ahead and switch roles and do the same thing. Do we have any questions? All right.
How much
We'll
time did
rename.
you want them in? How much time did you want?
We'll give it about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Do we think that? Yeah.
Yeah. I think we have one three will. Oh, no, no, no. I think we're good. Okay.
Okay.
I think maybe,
Thank you.
yeah, add a couple. I think we're going to have one three wheeler. So, how about 6 minutes? Is that cool?
Okay, we could do 6 or 8 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let's do eight.
however time.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Just to give everybody a chance. Okay, cool. There we go.
Okay. Actually, I'll get started then. Um, okay, so I just want to check in with everyone and ask how that went. Any feedback? And we can maybe at least have one from each group.
There we go. See, okay, let's go down the breakout rooms. Room one, we had Quinn and Ingrid. What do you have? What do you have?
Alrighty. So we just had to discuss and then basically like talk about the needs from the list.
Yeah. Or you
Okay.
can just talk about you don't have to exactly talk about what your partner said per se, but more so what the experience of listening, if that was different from like how you normally listen, trying to, just any feedback on that.
Okay. Honestly, it was pretty good. I feel like having the needs list and like being able to categorize like I guess what like people are talking about and like be like, "Oh, okay, like is this a peace need or like is this an emotional well-being?" And like seeing how sometimes like they can connect and like how it's like if you're not feeling good mentally like it could be emotional well-being but that could also affect your physical well-being, and it's like it's nice to have like a little model.
I think this also helps, like as Quinn was telling her story, I think it was like I was noticing like where she needed like point out, like like she was being playful with some of the cats she was feeding, right? And so like that, like I understood like where she was coming from and kind of like got her point of view and like why she was doing these things, which was like having the list was more helpful to like me connect with her.
Beautiful. Room two, Devin and Valerie. You're up.
I really, really liked getting to listen to the different conflicts. Um, uh, I thought they were very interesting, especially Valerie's conflict with the hot dog, like that it challenged me because I didn't really think I would struggle as much as I did to place the emotion. But eventually I got there. It's just such a novel scenario. I was like, but we got there and it was fun. I had a lot of fun.
Valerie, you want to touch on that at all? I just heard hot dog. Sorry. I thought that was, I don't know what, I know we don't give each other's, like, we don't tell each other story, but sounds like it was a really good conversation. Did you say hot dog, right? Sorry.
Yeah,
Did you? Okay.
yeah. So my conflict was over a hot dog, and I just it kind of left me speechless because it was like kind of like just really small and kind of dumb. But I just feel like the smallest little problems can cause such a big conflict that it's like, why are we even arguing about this right now? So like getting like the point of view of like other people, like seeing from the outside kind of like puts a better perspective on it. So yeah, I really liked hearing like what other people had to say about my experience.
So much awareness. I love it. Thanks for sharing.
Was that all the groups?
Ah, you want me to keep going? I
We
was
don't
like, oh,
have
I
to.
jumped
It's
in there.
okay. I think we
No,
got
if you
enough.
want to. Okay, cool.
Um, but yeah, so I think even for me, sometimes I get so excited. I don't mean it in in a bad way, but sometimes someone's saying something, I'm like, oh yeah, la la la. Or, I just have a tendency to interrupt. So when I first did this, I'm not gonna lie, y'all, it was hard for me to shut up. I was like, oh, let me not talk because I found myself like, oh, and I'm like, girl, no one wants your opinion. Like, just listen. So for me, it kind of was an experience to have to just listen. And yeah, even on the other end, it feels nice to be listened to, to have someone who on the other end is like giving you all their focus, all their attention. It makes you feel, valued and important. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, there have been times when I've been working on the warm line, right? And I accidentally mute my mic, right? So I'm responding to someone, but they don't hear me. And so sometimes it's left a silence where I normally would have spoken or said, oh yeah, a transition. And I realized that most of the meaningful conversations that I had was actually when I filled that silence, and then the person on their own starts to evolve the conversation. Once they start talking about one thing, it's kind of like they open up. It wasn't intentional, but I learned like, oh, the silence is powerful. I don't always have to speak, you know. Sometimes silence, I felt very awkward, like, oh, I need to say something or they're going to think I'm not paying attention, right? Especially over the phone. But again, as I said, most of the meaningful conversations that I've had with people on the line has been where I have had those, silences and they've been able to express themselves. So yeah, this is, helpful, a reminder, to listen. And, if you do experience conflict, whether in your personal life or while working as a peer supporter, it can be good to just try to listen. So let me get back to the presentation. One second. All right, can you see my screen? Good. All right. So when we were watching the video with Dr. Rosenberg, he talked about the needs list. So we already were able to identify our own feelings, our emotions from, the emotions list. Now there's a needs list. So the needs refer to essentially what you need in the situation to feel comfortable, whatever you may get from it. So maybe you just need someone to be honest with you. That's a really big one. Maybe you need autonomy. You want to feel like you're making decisions. I know for myself, when it comes to work, dealing with my therapist or psychiatrist, for me, autonomy is really important and being able to feel like I have power or choice over what's happening. Maybe you want peace, right? That's why I moved out of my family's house because there was too much conflict all the time. I just wanted a peace of mind. So I had to get some peace. So there are different needs that we may have and that we should try to be aware of because as Dr. Rosenberg was talking about, they asked, with the husband and the wife situation, well, what does your husband need? And we may think that people need something, right? When they call in the warm line, when you're being a service provider and someone comes in, you may think, oh, well, they need clearly, if they're houseless, right? They need resources for home, for affordable living and things like that. But that may not be what they're coming to you for. Maybe they just want someone to listen and to talk to and to, get their frustrations out. So you never really know. And what we want to do is listen and actually ask people, well, what do you need? What do you want from this? What are you expecting? Something for me, again, working on the warm line, when people would call, they'd call for a million different reasons. Some people, they wanted to complain about their boyfriend. Some people, they had, a little bit more serious issues going on. So when in doubt, it's always good to just ask. And yeah. All right. So moving on. When we talk about conflict resolution, before we really get into the model of how to resolve the conflict, I just want to give a few small pointers. So conflict often occurs as the result of miscommunication. I know we even talked about in here, like usually when there's a conflict, it's over something small and it's really like, what are we even fighting about? And usually it's the miscommunication, right? When I was telling you all about, the conflict that I was having with my partner, it was, I hear words like, but, and then I automatically get defensive. And so instead of hearing what comes after the but, I'm already like, no, 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 no. I'm already interrupting. I'm already upset. And so yeah, there are a lot of miscommunications. Another thing is that, rather than make assumptions about a person or situation, whether it be maybe how they're feeling or what their needs are, it's best to ask and actively listen to their feelings and needs. It's also suggested to steer clear of providing unwarranted feedback or suggestions. And again, this really plays back into reading the room and understanding, what is needed of you in that moment. I also want to emphasize that conflict resolution is a multi-party effort. It is not the sole decision of one person, and it must feel fair to everyone who's involved. So it's not just, even if it is, for instance, you have an issue and it's with your boss, it's not solely up to your boss. Like everyone has to feel comfortable in the arrangement. Unless, of course, you're breaking laws and gonna get fired. That's something different. But um, there's also the importance of taking accountability when you have said or done something to offend someone. I know I've talked about, when people are on the warm line, they come in and they're calling and they're usually in a vulnerable spot. So I have people have a tendency to be like, well, when we see people, they're angry anyway. So they just wanted someone to take their anger out, right? And sometimes there are cases when people just want to yell at someone, and that's valid. But sometimes um people and specifically providers in peer support or in mental health, they try to absolve themselves of any responsibility. Even if they said something that was triggering or activating or offending, they would rather say, well, they're already in that spot, so like they're just kind of angry and that's on them. But sometimes we also do have a responsibility, especially as peer supporters, to admit when you have said something that was offensive or wrong. Um, Again, we're not perfect, right? We may we try to be careful in our language and intentional, but they're not talking to AI, they're talking to real people. So again, we're not perfect, and we own that and we apologize when it is warranted. And I also do want to say that we may have the best intentions as peer supporters. Maybe we come in and we think that we're, oh, they need this, so we're gonna help them and we're gonna do this, and maybe you may have a good intention, but that's not always the outcome. You may have a good intention, but someone may not take what you're saying and really understand that. And when I think about conflict, I really do think about culture and, just understanding people. So again, I don't know if you guys have taken that quite yet, but really important. Um, so now that we've got all that mumbo jumbo out of the way, here's the actual solution, as we like to call. So, Dr. Rosenberg came up with the nonviolent communication model, which is essentially a four-step model and being able to identify and communicate your feelings, needs, and your request. So, for the first part, it's when you have an observation. So if it's, for instance, the thing that's upsetting you or the thing that is the conflict would be the observation. And then you identify your emotion, again, using the feelings list and being able to identify how you're feeling about a situation. And then we get into the needs. So you identify what your needs are in that moment. And then you come up with a request, which essentially is a solution that you feel comfortable with. to help you feel better in the situation. And so I also want to emphasize the request is not always going to be exactly what you want it to be. So maybe when you're thinking about a situation initially, you want, something very specific, but then when you go to the group, not everyone is comfortable with that. So you have to understand the request isn't always going to be exactly what you want, but it's something that feels comfortable for all, as I said. Um, so, things to avoid when we are communicating, right? When we have been able to identify how we feel, what we want, what we need, we want to avoid blaming others, right? For instance, I put a little keyword, you didn't, right? For me, the first thing that I come to mind, you didn't take out the trash, you didn't clean the litter boxes, things that me and my partner have fought over, right? Because we live together. Another one would be criticizing, right? Like you should have done this, you should have done that. Making demands. Again, it's kind of similar. Like you need to do this, you need to do that. Or making comparisons, right? Oh, well, my cousin's man, he does this and like, they do that, but you can't do that. So, that's these are things that when you are trying to communicate yourself will often activate or trigger people to close off to you. So I put as a little keyword to avoid generalizing language, like you always, you never, those words, often people hear them and they shut off, right? No, that's not true. I don't always, I don't never do that, right? And then you kind of lose the plot. Then you start arguing about specific words you said instead of what the actual problem is. So again, we want to avoid doing this. And what we want you all to consider in this language is to be intentional with your words, right? And I know when I was going through CAPS, we were talking about picks, picks, picks. So, again, picks. So we want to make sure that, I was gonna ask, but the answer is already here. Fuck. Excuse me. All right. So it's person-centered. Inclusive, collaborative, and strength-based. So, examples of things that are person-centered are actually asking people like, well, what do you want? What are your preferences? What do you feel comfortable with, right? And being inclusive, making sure that everyone who this relates to feels like, well, everyone can give their opinions, or why don't we all come up with solutions that we feel comfortable with, right? Also with the being collaborative, why don't we all come up with something? Why don't we, making sure that it's a group effort. And then we also want to make sure that it's strength-based, right? Like when I think about strength-based and I'm thinking specific in my team, right, as the training institute, we all have different trainers. So with that, oh, I'm sorry. So with that, we also have different strengths, right? And different topics that we all relate to a little bit more. I'm sorry, I took this off of and things we relate to a little bit more. So, yeah, making sure that it's also strength-based. So again, this is kind of they call it the NVC recipe, but because I have the Rubik's cubes and stuff, I kind of like to think of it as an equation. So in my mind, I know not everyone likes math, but I see it as an equation for being able to resolve conflict. So what we do is you put it together when A, the observation, I feel B because I need C, therefore I would like D, which is your request. So an example for this on my own, I brought up the example of with my psychiatrist and my therapist, right? We have had conversations about possibly using medication, right? But I personally would prefer not to use medication. So in this example, this is how I would communicate to my provider. When I'm not involved in mental health care making decisions, I feel scared, vulnerable, and intimidated because I need to feel secure and have autonomy in decision-making processes. Therefore, I would like to be more involved in discussions surrounding the development of my mental health plan and potential medication usage. And I will say, when I was asking my therapist about this, or my psychiatrist, I actually didn't frame it exactly like this because I did not have the nonviolent communication model, but essentially did something like this, and it was really effective in being able to communicate my wants. So, um, what we would like to do now, um, is we'll take about, hmm, I don't know how much time we will need for this, but what I wanted everyone to do was, again, reflect back to a time that you experienced conflict. And now, using the nonviolent communication model, we're going to try to express our observations, feelings, needs, and demands. Um, yes. So I was thinking that maybe we could do this. Would we be okay with doing this in groups? Renee. I was thinking maybe we could have groups of three. We'll give each other about like 5 minutes to construct this for yourself to be able to, do it. And then we'll give everyone 2 minutes to say it out loud to the group. So that'll be like
Okay.
10, 15 minutes. Do you think
Hold
that's
on.
okay, Renee?
Yeah, let me see. Hold on. Yeah, I'm trying to break up because we have not many for three. Let me
That's
see.
okay. Yeah, yeah. Well,
Is there,
however you think. If it's
okay,
pairs, that's probably best. But either way. And while you're doing that, I will speak to the CAP students
okay, cool.
again.
Thank you.
So when I was thinking, when I first initially did this, I did it, I tested it as a way to do it with my partner, right? So again, about taking out the trash. I was like, all right, this is easy, right? Well, when you don't take out the trash, I feel upset because I need to feel like I have a clean space. Therefore, you need to go throw out this trash right now, right? Very simple. Yay! But really, this isn't very effective. I realized like even my initial response in trying to create this was not effective because again, it wasn't person-centered, inclusive, collaborative, strength-based. Instead, it was blaming and criticizing and making demands and saying you need to do this and you need to do that. When in reality, in this situation, it should never be about the other person. You're never mentioning what they need to do or what you kind of want to frame it in a way of being more separate from it, I guess. So yeah, that's just a little bit of a feedback.
So here it's 10:07. We got to take a break.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
that hour mark. Yeah, past the hour mark. So thank you, everyone. Let's
Sorry,
take
no,
that
you're
10
right.
minute and I'll have the rooms ready to go and then we'll come back. So let's come back at 10:17 and yeah, go get your refill, whatever you need to do to take care of you. All right.
Thank you,
See you soon.
Renee.
You're welcome.
So I'm okay to start, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, welcome back, everyone. Sorry, I was speeding through this material so quickly, I forgot about breaks. So I'm glad that we took our break. We are kind of towards the last part of the presentation today. So just so you know, we are going to be working on the examples, and then we'll have one more with the vignettes, and then that'll be the end of the presentation for today. So we're almost out of here. But let me go ahead and share my screen.
We
Oh,
said 10 minutes, right? Did we say 10 minutes, Nico?
yeah, we did.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it was a
Rooms are
10-minute
ready to
break.
go whenever you're ready.
Okay, let's see. It says that there's another participant sharing,
Oh,
so I
sure.
can't
I
start my
stopped my
screen
share.
share.
Hold on. Let me see. That's strange.
It was from your computer audio, the music you were playing, I think.
Yeah. How about now?
Let's see. No, it's still giving
Weird.
me the same issue.
Okay, hold on. Let me see.
Um,
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay, I see what happened. I see what happened.
yeah.
That's weird. Okay, here you go. Oh, nope. Sorry. Okay, now it was on. There we go. Okay,
Hmm.
you're good.
Okay. Great. So we left off nonviolent communication method. So again, as we break into our pairs, we are going to resolve whatever conflict that comes to mind, whatever you're comfortable with sharing. When A, the observation, I feel B, the feeling, because I need, C, the need, therefore I would like D, the request. And before we get into this again, I just, we want to consider using PICS, person-centered, inclusive, collaborative, strength-based. And we want to be intentional with our language, and we want to avoid generalizing our language, blaming others, criticizing, comparing, or making demands. So again, keep the focus on you. We are now going to pair off into our groups. We will give this about 10 minutes. We have 5 minutes each to, construct the request, and then we have about 2.5, 2 minutes each to share with our partner. And then we'll come back, and one person from each group will give a reflection on what that experience was like. So, Renee, if you can please start the breakout rooms now. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Sorry, the timer thing popped up to go, and I was just so in the conversation, I forgot. So, welcome back, everyone. I hope that was a good experience for you all. If we can, just have one or if both of you would like to share what that experience was like.
I guess I could start. Sorry. Um, I want to say like I felt like it was a good experience, I got to relate and I don't know, I feel like um sometimes I don't like we don't really like notice the conflict until like we actually like think about it and then we start talking with somebody else and then um I guess you could see in a way like the solution once you actually bring up the conflict. So I feel like it was pretty good. So thank you.
Yeah, I feel like it's very straight to the point, which I appreciate. It's like A, B, C, D. It's like observation, feeling, need, request. It's simple, it's not complicated. Like Ashley was saying, like it's easier to find a solution once the problem is identified. Just kind of like compromise and just, yeah, active listening is really good. And me and Devin were talking about in our group, like nonviolent communication is key because like you could be violent without being physical. Like it could be in your words and in the way that you speak to people. So this is like good to apply it to like every situation, whether you're at work, at home, or like in your personal life and relationships. So thanks for your transparency too, because you make it like relevant the way that you talk about your own experience.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And as you were saying that, I was thinking, when they call it like throwing jabs at people, you're not actually punching them or anything, but with your words, it's kind of can be really piercing and can be in that way. So thank you for sharing that. Um, any others? All right, that's okay. We can move on. So thank you all for, engaging me in that. I think another reminder of something that's always helpful is the deep breathing that we did earlier today. So just a reminder of, sometimes we know that there are really big emotions involved with a lot of our conflicts. And, obviously this presentation is in the context of peer support, but I really want you all to realize that this applies everywhere. This is something that you can use in your personal life, especially, we are more than just peer supporters. We are peers because we go through life and things happen. Um, so just reminding yourself, to try to use this communication. And I also do want to say there are also limitations with that in some way. Because even though you may be ready, and this is me just thinking about previously living in a toxic household, right? Um, my background, I'm, Mexican American, my family, immigrated here. We don't really talk about mental health, for them, mental health, if you have time to worry about mental health, you need to go wash those dishes or do something else. Like, so it's not really talked about a lot, unfortunately. And sometimes when we try to communicate with someone who's not ready for this communication, it's kind of like goes on deaf ears. It feels like, you can try to bring this up, but I also want to be realistic of sometimes if someone's not in the space and ready to hear it, just be aware that not everyone is going to communicate non-violently towards you, if that makes sense. So just be aware. And before you go into these situations, recognize what are your triggers, what activates you, you know, keeping in touch with your physically, right? Like what am I feeling? Am I feeling shaky? Is my heart racing? When you begin to feel those, also recognizing when you need to step away from a situation of, okay, I'm trying to communicate, I'm trying to do this in a healthy way, and they're not reciprocating, they're making me upset. It's also time to step back. And so just own that as well. But yeah, thank you all. We do have one last activity, which I think are the vignettes. Renee, were you able to get that, or would you like me to
Yeah,
just share them?
they're all, I put them in the chat. Conflict
Okay.
resolution is the second document.
Okay. All
But I
right.
can I just touch on the feelings piece if you don't
Of
mind?
course, yes. Take a
Like I don't know if you all remember me talking about my little kids. I put the feeling charts on the fridge and I'd be like every morning I'd be like, give me three feelings, because I think we're brought up so much like boys don't cry, suck it up, buttercup, that kind of stuff. So I think a lot of people were only like limited to like five feelings, so a lot of them don't know how to identify those feelings. So it's really good to get that feelings list out. And like I said, keep this stuff so when you do groups or you move forward with all of this, you have this information. Just saying.
Yes, absolutely. That was the perfect plug, Renee. Thank you. Yeah, and just, again, just being aware of yourself, and how you may be feeling. And, sometimes going back to the jackal communication, right? And the giraffe communication, sometimes maybe, and this has been my experience, right? I work from home on the warm line. So me and my boyfriend could, have an argument about something, and then I have to immediately answer a phone call. And sometimes, I would realize, oh, I'm kind of being snappy at this person, or, they say something and I'm kind of like, or, kind of feeling aggravated, but also realizing I'm not aggravated at them. It's because I'm feeling affected by something else and I'm not addressing that. So now it's pouring into my work and how I'm showing up for other people. So being aware of that, and we're not evil for that, right? We're peers. It happens. It's okay. Sometimes we're not the nicest. Sometimes we're not the most patient, and that's all right. We can't always be something all the time. Um, but yeah, so I thought maybe for the vignettes, we could just go through them like as a group. And maybe this isn't, we don't need to use the nonviolent communication method, but think about ways that, I'm going to give a situation and maybe how we could have approached it differently, or things that we did wrong, or what could be done differently. So, Renee, would you mind actually sharing that up on the screen and we can just give our
Yeah,
opinions on it?
no problem. Let me
Thank you.
pull that baby up right now. Okay, there we go.
So the first one is going to be a little bit easier, I think. But I'll just go through it. So let's say you work on a warm line. Um, a regular caller who is usually very friendly calls in after discovering she was let go from her company. She says she's in a bad mood. As an effort to make her feel better, you share that you previously got fired too. You say, "Don't worry, things will get better. I've been there. I was once fired, but now I have an even better job. I get great benefits. I'm so lucky, and you will be too." You know, and then she hangs up. So, can anyone, suggest, maybe why she hung up? What went wrong in this situation? Devin.
Um, I feel like she wasn't here for advice, or she wasn't calling for maybe advice. She just was feeling like super down, and she wanted to express that feeling and um bring presence to the emotion, I guess. But I can also understand from like the caller's view, if it's a regular that you're familiar with and they're usually up at a very high place, that they would just naturally want to do anything they can to bring them back to that like base, I guess. So I see both situations, I guess. I like it.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback, Devin. And then we
Uh,
also have a comment here. Someone said that, sorry, let me open it up. Ingrid said the person was making it about themselves. Yes. Do we have any other feedback on this? I'm gonna give my, perspective at the end, but we'll see, what everyone says.
I think that they weren't making a person centered. Like they were like it was said focusing on themselves and then comparing situations, which instead of like each person having their own experience, like she was kind of like comparing them and making them like the same without validating her feelings or like her experience.
Yes. So these are all great points. What do you think, okay, what could have been, how could the operator have approached this differently? How do you think this would have gone better? We also have Amani. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Putting logic over emotions in this setting. Do you mind elaborating on that, what you mean by that a little? Like from the perspective of the operator, they should have put logic over emotions. Oh, that's okay. No worries. I think I do know what you mean though, putting logic over emotions in the setting, like showing up for them in the way that they needed to, rather than saying how you felt about yourself, I think is what you mean. But please correct me if I'm wrong. But I do think that is a great way for a solution in this case. Anyone else? Yeah, so the feedback that you all gave is is right. Right. In this situation, this actually was a real call. I exaggerated what I said a little bit. But this really was an interaction with me and a caller. And so this person, as Devin said, they're usually very positive. They're usually in a happy mood. So I try to get them back to that positivity of like, I understand you're in a bad space right now, but things can get better. You can get an opportunity out of this. I try to make it seem positive, and they were like, hell no. And I do recognize looking back at it, like, girl, first of all, how could I even know that? Right? We've had people call in the line and they've been without a job for 6 years, actively looking, actively trying, right? So how could I have said, oh, it'll get better, I was in that situation and it got better for me, but how would I know that it got better? It would get better for them. And then, of course, the point that you all made of, they weren't calling looking for, oh, we're gonna get you a job. Yay. No, they were calling because they wanted to express, like, I just lost my job. I don't have anyone else to talk about. My family depends on me. I have rent due next week, and it wasn't really my space to try do that for them. Um, I'm sorry, Renee, do you think that you can go back to the vignettes? But yeah, I definitely should have been more person-centered. I should have kept the focus on them rather than on me. And again, sometimes we may have the best intentions, but intention does not equal outcome. So, this is our last example. So for the vignette number two, imagine you work at a peer respite home. There is a new resident who's not following a rule regarding limited food storage. Other residents have been complaining that there's no space, the food is rotting, and it has a bad odor. They no longer want to store their food in the shared space. You kindly confront the resident and ask that they throw some of their food away. However, they say there's nothing wrong with it and they refuse to throw it away. So, do we have any ideas for how to approach the situation or how to come up with a resolution? Right? Because this one is complicated. I think for the phone one, it was a little obvious that I was not showing up right. But this one, it's hard, right? Because we want to respect the person, but there's also a community, and we want to respect the group as a whole. Um, so do we have any feedback on this?
Is your hand up, Devin? Is that you?
Just like a warm up, just to break the ice, but like I feel like the explanation in this scenario is very like abrupt. It's just there's not really any reasoning behind it.
Mm.
It's like the person isn't giving any reasoning. It's just like uh confronts the resident and asks them to throw some of their food away. Like why? My f adding on to just like the why of it, like explaining other people need their space maybe and would be a
Mm.
better approach. Yeah.
Yeah, this one is a complicated one, and I will say the resolution did not end up being something that I would have liked, but I wasn't really involved. This is actually a story that I heard from a caller. Antonia or Quinn says, I would offer to maybe help replace some of the food that is rotting or smelly, or find an alternative to where it can be stored. Yeah, that's a great example. I mean, um, for the storage, if they needed maybe a little mini fridge in their own room, right? Because in the peer respite, they have their room. So if maybe that was an issue. Um, before I give my piece on this, is there maybe any other ideas? Renee, you seem very
I
excited.
have to say, I did go through something like this, but we had housed
Mhm.
her, and she had been living on the riverbed for years. It was really, really. I remember I said they need extra supports when we get them housed, because
Mhm.
they're so used to like living out and cleaning themselves on the riverbed with like cleaning products from the 99-cent store, like household, like just stuff like that. So anyway, she would pick up food and bring it home, and her counter was full of food, really nice stuff, but it was mold on it. Like moldy crap, like it needed to be thrown out. And I can't tell her what to do. She's really hell bent that it's safe. You know what I mean? So what I had to do is just I had to, reflect, do the motivational interviewing, like, you might get sick, educate, educate, educate that you can get sick, Googling it, pulling it up online on the phone. Let's look at this. I even coordinated for her MD, her doctor, to come and do a visit with me, go outreach her just to educate her and making sure she was okay. But it took a long time and she finally got sick off of some yogurt and really
Oh,
sick. And then, yeah. But anyway, that was a real situation that we had, but it was a real.
oh, poor thing. And thank you for sharing, Renee. I know I really love the experience that you bring. You really do this work out in the field. So, yes, thank you for that. Any other suggestions before I give my answer?
Yeah, I think like Devin was saying, just kind of reminding them that it is a shared space and that just like having respect for each other because like it would make them feel bad if you tell them like, oh, that food is rotten and it smells. Like it might make them feel a type of way if they're feeling like personal about it. Like it can make them feel bad. So kind of maybe going for the approach of like, oh, there's other people in this shared space and kind of like redirecting the focus onto like them learning how to have like respect of other people's boundaries because that's like ultimately the issue. But then also like Renee was saying, like it's kind of hard if they're gonna like take it personal and like they're so used to like doing things a certain way. But then it's also like a health risk.
Absolutely. And thank you.
Ooh,
Oh, go ahead,
what
Renee.
about an ice cooler? I'd bring in an ice cooler, man, and just like put in the little stuff you want here. Psych rehab. Let's think of things to kind of work with.
Yes. Honestly, that would have been a really amazing situation. And even asking this, right? I know Quinn mentioned maybe offering to replace the food or some type of like, we'll purchase food for you, right? But the thing is, this one was really hard. Unfortunately, it ended up being that she got kicked out. She refused to cooperate, and unfortunately, the leader basically said that it was unsafe for everyone, and she's no longer welcome back. There was other things that went on behind that. Unfortunately, it was not a good resolution. But I think even asking her, right? Because when people have rotten food, maybe they come from a place of food insecurity, right? Maybe especially if they're in this home, right, that houses them for a week, well, why won't you throw it away? Maybe I know my grandmother, she grew up when times when they didn't have refrigerators. So, she's like, oh, it's not so bad, right? Because it is different. And maybe just trying to understand her a little bit more, and even Renee's suggestion of an extra cooler, right? A cooler, it would have been cost effective, and she could have had her food there and been separate from everyone else. I think would have been a good solution. But to humanize her, right? Instead of being like, this is rotten, this is bad, this is disgusting, it's going to harm other people, you need to remove it or you need to get out, to humanize with her a little bit more of like, okay, what can we do, and to be a little bit more creative. So I do want to say sometimes in the moment, for whatever reason, we may not come up with the best solutions, right? But the thing is, as peers, we learn from our experiences. Exactly. Education, education, education. You learn as you're going through on the fields. There are things I wish I had said and done differently. And each day is an experience, an opportunity to get better and to be better. And yeah, that concludes the presentation. And I just want to say thank you all for your time. I was hoping we could get out a little bit earlier, but I appreciated your all's, your engagement, and thank you for the time.
Oh, Nico, let's give it up for Nico. All right. I think it's the first time I've seen you present, actually. So this was
Yes, I
cool.
actually think so.
All right. So you all could do your evaluations, and that's going to be for conflict resolution with Nico. But thank you,
Yes, I do
Nico.
just want to share this really quickly. I have excuse me. I have my LinkedIn. If any of you all would like to be connected, I do also want to say I'm open. I think a lot of people in this organization also are if you have any questions, if you need any help, anything like that, I'm always a resource for you. So I'll go ahead and drop that in the link. But
Nice. I'll
yeah.
come visit us at the Project Return office. Come and see us at the office if you're in Huntington
Oh
Park or
yes.
anywhere.
I'm sorry. I actually can't drop it in the chat, but what I'm gonna do is I have a QR code, so I'm just gonna share my screen. If you
That's
want to
fancy.
access that, you can. Um, so yeah, it's there if you need it. But yeah, does anyone have any questions or anything like that? This is just a recap of the important things for today. I hope that we remember the giraffe, jackal, and nonviolent communication. So
Right on. Thank you, Nico. Right on. And
thank
I
you all.
see I'm looking in the student portal, and if we do wind up getting out early, we have 35% of the assignments that are turned in, 35% for conflict resolution. Just saying, a little heads up. We're not gonna try. It's not, I'm just saying, if we get out early, please work on this. That's all. All right,
Great.
Nico, you out? You're good?
Yeah, well, if there's no
All right.
questions or